Good evening, folks. It's Diamond from the Oppenheimer Ranch Project and Magnetic Reversal News, bringing you a grand solar minimum update Thursday, January 2nd, 1 a.m. Mountain Time 2019. The models are in, and North America is buried. These are the new models coming in. Over 5 to 7 feet of snow from British Columbia all the way down. Yeah, to southern Oregon. Take a look at these numbers. West of the divide is completely buried, and I fear for Idaho and some totals, as well as Washington State. Keep calm. It's boom time. Welcome to the new year. And before we start, let's talk about high alert at the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad and how this has nothing to do with your security in North America.
At the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad after protesters launched a dramatic attempt to storm the compound. U.S. Marines firing tear gas at the crowd after the roof of a reception area was ignited. It was the second day of a siege that began after U.S. airstrikes on Iranian-backed targets in Iraq. This night
I just want to come back to this guy. This is how this man is staying safe in a country where he does not belong. If you think that this or this language that you do not understand here to the right has anything to do with your safety, you have been completely brainwashed. You need to take the red pill. This has everything to do with securing resources so the elites continue to funnel money into their bank accounts and make you poor and keep you out of the loop, period. Let's get back to the video.
Began after U.S. airstrikes on Iranian-backed targets in Iraq. This night vision video showing Marines flown in by Osprey aircraft from Kuwait, and the Defense Department announcing they will deploy an additional 750 troops to the Middle East, quote, immediately. ABC News foreign correspondent James Longman leading us off.
A second day of rage at the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. Tires burned, fires lit. U.S. troops shooting tear gas to disperse hundreds of protesters. Smoke once again shrouding America's most heavily fortified embassy. With the damage from the violence clear, U.S. security personnel on high alert, ensuring the crowds don't breach the walls. U.S. helicopters firing flares to keep the crowd at bay yesterday, and overnight, President Trump left with no choice but to deploy new reinforcements to the Middle East. About 750 soldiers from 82nd Airborne Division in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. That's on top of more than 100 Marines already.
Be pissed, especially when I knew that not a single person in the entire country had any money to even purchase food, let alone a bus ticket, let alone get a visa to come to America based on the current situation. Complete nonsense. And if you buy into it, you support it, please unsubscribe to my channel. Top 10 blizzards, extreme cold, and more in Minnesota and Wisconsin. We're going to go over some facts of what happened in 2019 because it is the new year, just to keep it fresh. Snow and cold temperatures weighed heavy on the minds of Midwesterners last year, which was just a day ago, by the way. Record snowfall and cold temperatures are two things residents hope they aren't plagued with in 2020, but they've already been plagued with them. So it's a moot point. It seemed like snow was a possibility every single week for residents of Goodhue and Pierce counties in 2019. According to the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, February 2019 was the snowiest months ever recorded in Minnesota history. National Weather Service stations around the state recorded high snow marks. In Goodhue County, heavy snow totals were observed in just 1 month. Lake City saw 49 inches. Red Wing saw 40. Zumbrota, 39. Ellsworth-based Telsstrom Towing, other Dan Tom, said he received close to 98 calls on January 29th. Will we repeat this? Of course we will. It'll be worse because we were even lower in the solar minimum of cycle 24. Now let's talk about the first winter storm of 2020, which will bring snow to the west, deep snow. And when we look at those models, your mind will be blown. And to the east, they'll be wet.
Henry, so the big overview here and what we're dealing with. We've got the winter weather alerts here across parts of the Rockies. You can see the zone here where you see those shades of blue. Winter weather advisories are in the lighter shade. The darker shades where we've got the winter storm warnings, which also includes Salt Lake City, where you've been watching the snow adding up there. There is the water vapor imagery showing you what's going on, and you can see there's the jet stream and some of the flow coming on in here into parts of the west, the flow of moisture streaming its way on in. So that's helping to provide us with a decent amount of the snow while we head farther south, and that southern branch tapping into some of that Pacific moisture streaming in across Mexico and then moving into the lower 48, crossing into Texas and the lower Mississippi Valley as well. That's going to provide us with
and there you see the split of the meridional flow
that we see
and what
that
this
really
guy
takes
does not
over.
know. He's simply a reporter. He's a puppet. So the meridional flow is bringing in that equatorial tropical moisture to the south while the Canadian Arctic and the Arctic air pushes down to the northeast. This is a sign of the times and things to come. As our magnetosphere breaks down, we're going to see more extreme weather conditions where it's 90 degrees on one side of the front and 12 degrees on the other side. It will blow your mind. Stay tuned. You'll live it. The first winter storm of 2020 will bring snow to the west through New Year's Day. This storm is likely to produce more rain than snow or ice in the Midwest and the East than the West, but the West is the best and will be buried. Here's your first storm 2020. Rain cloud change to snow over the Midwest and the Northeast in the coming days. Here's your winter weather alerts currently in the West. The northern Rockies from Denver north will be pummeled. Rain and snow forecast through Thursday. Those purple regions are going to be 12, 18, or higher, including northern Idaho, northern Washington, most of Utah in the mountain ranges, and northern Colorado. Little tippy touch here in the northern mountains of the south. But Thursday's forecast is looking extremely wet in the southeast. Probably some severe weather on this front as it moves through, tornadoes and other things. So keep a close eye on that. We'll get to the forecast in just a second. Winter storm set to hit Aspen area Wednesday with heavy snow into Thursday night. Take a look. Kremling and west, you're buried. Ringing in the new year with a series of snowstorms could bring nearly a foot of snow in the weather forecast to the Aspen area of Colorado mountains, according to updates on Wednesday. The bigger chance is over in Utah, but this is a Colorado paper, so it is a rag. Aspen Times, by the way. Wednesday morning forecast. Snow continues for the region in Montana. Snowed all day there. It's going to continue. Gusty winds and scattered snow showers will dominate the valley. And West Yellowstone, where the volcano will not erupt anytime in the near future. A low of 5. It's like minus 10 here. I wish I was in Yellowstone. And here's your forecast. Currently, it's minus 8C outside while I do the forecast. Let me just give you some video here. There you go. Got my new haircut. Take a look. That's gorgeous, isn't it? I did it myself. I've been cutting my hair since I was 14, by the way. Maybe it was 15. Let's run it through. Check the models. There's that heavy snow in the west moving through in the next 1, 2, 3 days. As we plan a trip down here to southern, actually northwestern New Mexico. We're going to get to that at the end of the podcast. So stick with us. We're going to be doing some amazing things, and it's freezing in here. I got the wood-burning stove and the heater, which is right over here. Everything to my left is to my right, so it's very confusing, by the way. But here we go through Friday, January 3rd. We're talking 1 to 2 feet of snow in most of the northern Rockies, coming from the Four Corners region north. And this system is going to continue to add insult to injury. There is a first week of January northeastern storm here. It's going to bring snow to the southern Appalachians in a big way. It's going to be good news to the ski resorts there, like historical snows. Then that lake effect snow in the northeast is going to add insult to injury in many regions. And then Canada is going to be absolutely frozen and obliterated through a series of storms that buries the everywhere above 40 degrees north. And one of the good things to note is that we are below 40 degrees north and we're not getting this epic snow. Look at these totals up here in the northwest. These are unprecedented. Most of Idaho is under 8 to 10 feet of snow in the next 2 weeks on this model. Almost 30% of the state under 10 feet of snow. I don't know how that's going to unravel, but we're going to report on it live before your very eyes as we enter the new paradigm. Let's check out the snowfall analyzer and analyze this. In the last 48 hours, we've had over 3 feet of snow in certain areas of Montana, and it's going to continue to pummel that region. Big winter, northern Wisconsin, that's pretty normal. And the northeast, the beast from the east, covering Maine with 12 to 18 inches in many areas. And then the secret storm that hit Boston that they weren't ready for. We were ready. Proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance when you're ready. Seismic update. No quakes of note. We have a blood echo in Indonesia kicking off seconds ago. Could be telling us of something big to come here. So let's keep a close eye on that. Otherwise, worldwide, we're pretty quiet. We have some activity on the Kamchatka in a moderate intensity, 5.2 on the Aleutians there, and then a 5.1 here towards Kamchatka at the tip of the island array. And I'm seeing nothing else of significance except a 5.2 in Iran, which may have rumbled some vests. It's a surface quake. 10 kilometers. A lot of people are wondering why all the earthquakes happen at 10 kilometers. This is normal. It's called a surface quake. When a quake emanates up to the surface, it typically transitions at 7 to 10 kilometers, which is why the USGS claims 80 to 90% of the quakes at 10 kilometers, because that's the zone that they typically occur. It's a typical occurrence. It's not abnormal. So those of you thinking that all the quakes at 10 kilometers are abnormal, no, that's normal. That's like breathing. So if you see a quake at 10 kilometers, pretty normal. Surface quake. And that's a boom. We're watching Indonesia. Worldwide volcano news update. Krakatoa, as we reported days ago, is still a blower. Who NOAA? Well, we do. NOAA knows nothing. NASA also fraud. Ibico eruption. Flight level at 10,000 feet, not typical. That's a high burst. We have Sangay, as well as, I don't know, we have to scroll down here. Stromboli, Fuego, Popo, Krakatoa, and Dukono. Stromboli, the activity of the volcano has been fluctuating between high and medium levels. And it is characterized by Strombolian explosions, which are delicious, especially if you order pepperoni. I said it. It's 2020. I can say whatever I want. Here we are at solarham.net. And you can see here they've circled a plague on the sun. Well, we did our own homework, but let's hear what the powers that be have to say. Welcome to 2020. We're right here. The new decade is starting off with a new sunspot belonging to cycle 25 currently, forming high latitude in the southeast quadrant. Should it stick around long enough, it should be assigned AR 2755 if it stays alive. Currently, the region is not considered a threat for noteworthy solar flares, but let's check out the continuum nonetheless. It does not want to go away. There it is. Here's the continuum. So this is the live update, and I'm going to refresh it. This is all of the satellites in all of the regions, in all of the ranges, overlaid. It's a continuum. And I might not have explained that correctly, but it's the best I can do right now. And so you can see the little dot here. There it is. It is decaying. It has been decaying since it was first seen, and it's even decaying even more since I saw it just 6 hours ago when I started researching tonight's podcast. So this spot continues to decay as it comes Earth-facing, which is indicative of a solar minimum and what we've seen over the last 2 or 3 years. As sunspots are Earth-facing, they decay. This is putting us in a time frame for the start of solar cycle 25 sometime in the next 5 to 6 months, in my opinion. We're going to be watching this closely. It's typical as a sunspot a new cycle starts to spark up, like cycle 25. We'll see a few sunspots in the equatorial regions, separating now towards the polar regions. And we've just seen 3 polar sunspots towards the polar regions in the last week, which shows that the next cycle will happen in the next year. That's the scientific data. So by seeing 3 spots like this in a week or 2 that are more polar, it would suggest that cycle 25 is about to begin, but in 6 to 12 months. Not now. It hasn't started. It's the inception of the cycle, so to speak. I hope that makes sense. It's a lot to say in few words. Now let's take a quick look at our sun and let's watch the inception of solar cycle 25 take hold, if we have the bandwidth. We don't. We just don't have the bandwidth. We don't have the technology or the finances to create the bandwidth, which is good. I mean, that's one of the reasons we moved out here, so that if the event does happen, we will not be affected in any way. We just go over to solar and start looking around, start growing more food, period. Nobody's coming here. They got their own battles to win where they are, which apparently is in the wrong place based on our statistics. Now you can see that the activity here away from the equator is high on the north and the south latitudes here towards the poles of the sun. We see this active region that has no sunspots moving away, a new active region even more polar oriented further from the equator, which is indicative of the inception of solar cycle 25. I cannot stress that enough. There's that spot, very energetic, actually moving the shroud here out a little. So when I see some activity moving that out, we got to keep a close eye on the spot. But the spot has diminished over the last 10 hours. What hasn't diminished is the need for marijuana for every single human on the planet that needs it, which is most of you, whether you believe it or not. And that's because we have an endocannabinoid system and receptors in our own brain, which means our body needs to incorporate this plant into our system for homeostasis and anyway, that's for another podcast. Illinois' lieutenant governor beats long lines to become one of the first to legally buy weed in Illinois. This is the lieutenant governor. Look at how happy she is. She got an entry-level gummy, 5 milligrams per piece. I could eat the whole jar, like, and be like, what? Tasted like a gummy worm. But I digress. People are getting access to the plant food they need, the plant medicine that is indeed going to save the earth. 5 missing after crab fishing boat sinks off Alaska. The world's deadliest catch just got real. One of my favorite shows when it came out, and I actually watched TV, but I haven't watched television in 5 years, so I'm sure they're on episode 8 or something. Season 8, however you say it. I don't do that. But 2 of the 7 crew members were rescued in their own skiff. They made it to the boat, but the other 5 are probably way at the bottom of the ocean. Because when you hit seawater that's like 29 degrees, you go into shock and you sink right down like a tank. It takes 8 to 10 days for your body to swell from gases to float. So we probably won't find these people for a while. but it's anyone's guess. 2 of the 7 crew members were rescued after the Scandies Rose, a 130-foot-long crab fishing vessel, sank Tuesday night off the coast. Our prayers go up to them. Really long, good friend of mine also succumbed to heart problems. He had a pacemaker. Just the other day, I was informed could potentially be due to the huge stretch of KP0. His pacemaker couldn't keep up with his fibrillation. But I just want to send a shout out to Lucas. I love you, man. I'll see you up there, bro. I just celebrate the life of a friend of mine that just passed New Year's Day. 400 protesters in Hong Kong arrested after thousands joined New Year's Day rally. Sign of the times. They're going to push us down. They're going to eliminate us. You better be prepared when you're going to protest. Please don't be a sheep that just goes out there with the sign like, we did that already a decade ago. It didn't work. I suggest you stay home. Protect your stockpiles. Protect your friends and family. Create a group. Create a perimeter. No one's coming down the road I live on. Every single person on this road knows what potentially is coming. And the third house on the entry point to our road is a retired military sniper at high elevation. So please come down our road if the shit hits the fan. Because we have an entry point lock-off. That's the sweet silence you're hearing right there. Climate apocalypse now. Here's what the world will look like in 2030, right? Everything's burnt. There's nothing left in a decade. This is funny. We're going to have a moon base, and Elon Musk is going to save everyone. And we're going to use genetic testing and CRISPR to make a more resilient human. How about teeny tiny nuclear plants that will all fail? So that we don't just have 1,300 of them, we have 13 million of them. What a brilliant idea. And that way we can all be irradiated from your stupid ideas. New study estimates the global extent of river ice loss as funding runs out for the global warming alarmists. Now this paper is saying all the rivers are going to melt, they're melting, and we spent our funding wisely. And our conclusions are that more than half of the Earth's rivers freeze over every year. Yeah, I can believe that because we have a thing called winter and seasons that allow that to occur. These frozen rivers support important transportation networks. Yeah, I saw the show Ice Road Truckers. I can relate. And for communities and industries located at high latitudes, ice cover also regulates the amount of CO2 released from the earth. And these rivers, which is totally insignificant if you put it into a model. It's like 1/1000%. Which is why the study concludes, based on all of that money that your tax dollars went for, that annual river ice cover will decline. Let me highlight this, because you paid for it. Annual river ice cover will decline by 6 days every 1 degree Celsius increase in global temperature. Now, let's put that into context. Since records have been kept, the average global temperature since 1880 in all modern instruments, including the ones they've doctored, and even in the doctoring of NASA and NOAA data, we're still less than 1 degree above the baseline since 1880. 0.8 is the most honest record of rise in temperature, which is less than half a degree C, which means we have hundreds of years to even get to 1 degree C, or a reduction of 6 days of commerce on these frozen. Anyway, it's total nonsense. It's total BS. It's not science. and it's called paid for funding. They funded the article, they wrote the paper, they got their degree, and now it's a headline, which means nothing. In hundreds of years, we're going to be have a reduction of 3 or 4 days on the ice. Do you know what that means? Nothing. And thanks to physics.org for bringing us hours of pain and suffering as we wade through their nonsense to get to the base of the facts, which are non-existent. Physics.org might as well be called, well, whatever, sharticle.org, in my opinion. Physics.org. Unprecedented and worrying rise in sea levels poses a serious threat to coastal cities. Sea levels have been rising 1 millimeter a year. Look at that. You're dead. Do you see how much that is? I mean, 3.3 millimeters. Wait a minute. Let me adjust that. There you go. You see that? I'm terrified. But what I'm not terrified to do is contact the top scientist in the entire globe on the subject, Jennifer Marahasi. Yeah, she's from the other side of the world. She's actually from tomorrow. It's amazing. She actually exists a day from now all the time. That's how it works, according to science. So when I talk to her tomorrow, it will be actually the day after that at the same time. And we're going to talk about how insane the alarmists are about the sea level rise graph and how they are uninformed about isostasy and local sea level development and the change from buoys to other measurements like satellites, and how the fact that if we took all of the measurements globally, half of the numbers would show rising sea levels, half of the numbers would show falling sea levels, and no one incorporates isostatic rebound from the last ice age or local isostasy due to deposition or other factors. If you don't know what isostasy is or lithospheric flexure, it simply means the earth goes up and down for reasons. If you put a lot of weight on the earth, it goes down. If you melt it all off, it comes back up. Some areas, sediments in the sea are depositing and pushing it down. And then they stop pushing it down and they come back up. So there are all kinds of cause and effects locally, geologically, to explain sea level rise and fall at each location. Which is why the alarmists don't want to show you all the data of all the buoys in all the places to explain all of the responses to sea level. Because if they did, it would show no catastrophic sea level rise anywhere. It would show catastrophic sea level rise in some places, no sea level rise in others, and sea level fall in others. And everyone would be like, well, wait a minute. That doesn't mean anything, which is exactly what it means. Natural climate variability is the rule. Natural climate cycles have ruled the earth time immemorial. And in some places it gets hot while other places get cold, even when we enter an ice age. So let's say we're in the middle of the Wisconsinian ice age 17,000 years ago. There's 5 miles of ice in New York. Guess what? There's a place in Colorado where it got 84 degrees that day. No one realizes that. Climate is variable. And when the temperature drops 10 degrees globally, it will only drop 10 degrees locally. Some areas more, some areas less. But as a general rule, if you experience 90-degree warm days in your region, and we're in an ice age, you'll experience 80 or 78-degree warm days in your region. But it will be extremely cold and very difficult to grow food. It's called climate. It has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with what's been happening on the earth forever. So Jennifer and I are going to be doing an interview tomorrow on the facts about sea level rise, sea level fall, coral reefs, and everything else you ever wondered about from the other side of the pond. And I can't wait. There she is. Scientist, author, and speaker of the truth. She's a scientist. She's a skeptic. That means you're a scientist. If you're not a skeptic and you're a follower alonger for funding, psst, you're not a scientist. You're a schmuck. And that's tonight's first boom. To all those frauds at university, like Michael Mann, sucking up, just gobbling up the money to produce zero science. When I meet you on the other side, I'm going to hit you with a pillowcase right in the face. Trust me, Mr. Mann. I'll shove that hockey stick right up your heaven. Hurricanes, climate change, and the decline of the Maya. Now, natural climate variability is becoming more and more mainstream because in just a year, NOAA and NASA are going to be using solar forcing as part of their mechanism to predict climate, which means bad things about the current models. It means that all paleoclimatological data is actually going to be embraced because they're unable to erase that. It comes from an ice core that is completely safe. They can't adulterate the ice core. It's already been published. I have the data, folks. So they can't erase that, which is the beauty of paleoclimatology. They might be able to flood Svalbard and the seed bank, but it will always be below freezing for 6 months of the year up there because it's above the Arctic Circle, which is why they built it there. And guess what? Every summer it floods since it was built. So don't believe the hype. It's a sequel developed by the multinational corporations to mislead you into believing their narrative that we all are kumbaya into a globalist government where everyone's going to be out of poverty and we're all going to just live on $11,000 a year. All lower middle class. Dancing around in a circle, giving all our money to the big man. I can't wait for the solar flare to take out the grid and take these schmucks right off of our venue. I'm going to jump. It will literally be my Independence Day when that X9 comes towards us. Now, as the quickening continues and this actual information is flowing into your brain that you're now incorporating into your daily life, a simplified correlation between vertebrate evolution and Paleozoic geomagnetism is coming out. This is my life's work. And I am so enamored by this paper, which is now up. It's not peer-reviewed, but it's up for a review now. Just came out December 31st, 2019, and you should all look for it. Peer review it yourself. And despite a 50-year failure of paleontologists, except me, to find variable connections between geomagnetic polarity reversals and evolutionary patterns, it's coming clearer and clearer. Recent paleobiology databases show that early appearance, radiation, and diversification of Paleozoic vertebrates tend to occur during periods having frequent collapse of the Earth's geomagnetic field. Namaste. Check it out. I'm going to do a whole video on it. That's how stoked I am. Explosion, flash of light over New York might have been a meteor, officials say. What else would it have been? Wow, those are some really smart people. Coordinated meteor shower to sparkle in early January sky. I wonder if it was a meteor. I wonder. I mean, it's so confusing. The new year will kick off with a major meteor shower. All signs are pointing towards the dazzling display in the sky on Friday night as long Mother Nature cooperates. That means no clouds. The coordinates often go overlooked during the frigid nights in early January, especially when it's -9°C out. But people that brave the cold this year might get rewarded as the ingredients are coming together for a good show in North America, especially if you have mushrooms. January's lone meteor shower will peak, if you're peaking, on Friday into the pre-dawn hours of Saturday morning. And under ideal conditions, more bolides will hit New York City without hitting it when you're peaking. 3,000-year-old trees excavated under a glacier in Iceland show that the mainstream is full of it. 3,000 years ago. Yeah, this is the Mycenaean worm, prior to the Roman worm. All based on solar science. There was a forest growing on the glaciers in Iceland. And yet they're having funerals for glaciers in Iceland that have forests beneath them. I don't know if you get to heaven and then when you get there, they're like, oh, you had the funeral on the glacier? Yeah. Goodbye. You just get shot out. You got to redo that again. Better. Now, let's talk about some more investigations that we're going to be delving into about the facts. Leah, Alien Allen, and I are going to be headed with Graham to the Crow Canyon Archaeological District over the next 3 days. We're going to end the journey at a UFO crash site just north of Aztec. One of the most covered up extraterrestrial crash sites on the planet, where they found 16 humanoid creatures dead on arrival. According to Rex Bear, there are 3 feet high, anatomically correct humanoids. And this is not the first example of this. But we're going to go out there and get to the bottom of it. We're going to take EMF, radiation meters, and we're going to do a scientific analysis of the site. But that's the end of the trip. Let's get to the beginning of the trip. Crow Canyon Archaeological District, a historic site in Rio Arriba in the San Juan counties of New Mexico, located 30 miles southeast of the city of Farmington, just outside of Bloomfield, in the Dineta, where the Dine, or the Navajo. This is their homeland, the traditional homeland of the Navajo people. The site contains a variety of ruins, including pueblitos and amazing rock art, which is purported to be from the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries. But at the same time, there's ancient Puebloan petroglyphs at the same site, which at all of these sites we have seen, time immemorial, have shown about 10,000 years of information at the same place. The fact is that the Crow Canyon Archaeological District has been turned over to the oil and gas industry, is owned by BLM, and no one gives a about it. It's so deep into the wilderness that no one goes there. But we'll go there, and we'll share the facts with you as they emerge over the weekend. Crow Canyon petroglyphs, very indicative of the Navajo sand paintings. You can see here how crisp and clean the lines are. Yes, I agree that what you're looking at here, this art in the center panel, is from the 16th and 17th and maybe even the 18th century. But even this information is going to tell us something. But more importantly is the overlaying information, which we're going to look at. What happened to these people? Why is the information so sparse? What are these symbols and maps up on panel 44? 27 miles into the wilderness. What do they mean? Well, I'm pretty sure they're roadmaps to the truth that we've been denied. So join us on our journey as we pick up what they've put down. We might find some Navajo pueblitos, which are supposedly strongholds when the Navajos went to war with the Utes. But I think that's a Western narrative. What do you think? Sunday we'll be at the UFO crash site, and maybe we'll find something there. But we will never stop exploring the facts. Now, the simple truth about physics is this. Theoretical models can be complex, and the most complex models are always wrong. We are now in the most complex modeling stage of pseudophysics that ever existed. We got to go back to the framework, back to the basics. The most successful models are the simplest ones. And we have yet to figure that out. Unless you go to thunderbolts.info. Thunderbolts.info. And get schooled on the least complex model of physics ever presented. I can't make this up. How about this one? Hemp batteries are even more powerful than lithium and graphene. And thank God this fake demon plant is becoming accessible to everyone. I can't believe we had to wait till 2020 before a plant was decriminalized. It's almost insane. I'm glad I opted out when I did. You can do it now. If you don't have money, you don't need it. There are plenty of places you don't need money to get away from a major city, to live with like-minded people. My neighbor Mike has a permaculture farm in Costa Rica. I'm pretty sure you can go there. There are thousands of permaculture farms there that accept volunteers for free. Do your homework and pray for the hemp battery to make it online before the grid goes down. Because Edison irons are expensive. You want to know what's really happening? Check out this video, straight from Sweden. What is really happening in Sweden is really happening worldwide. And I like a nose ring now and then. And I'm no feminist. I'm a realist. Watch the video. Hope you got something out of this video. The longest video I've done in a year, but it is a new year. LeakCon 2020 fast approaches. The guest list is set. Will you be there? Keep calm. Facts are coming. We love you. Thanks to all our one-time donors and everyone that shares this video. Whether you like it or not, we love you. Be safe. We'll see you at Crow Canyon this weekend. That's about.